Hello and welcome back to the channel. On today's tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you how to draft and sew a deep neckline dress with a ruffle at the lower part. So if it's your first time viewing my channel, please hit on the subscribe button and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Let's dive right into today's video. So now I've gone ahead to mark out all my basic measurement, which includes my shoulder to bust, shoulder to underbust, shoulder to waistline, and my basic neckline of 3 by 3 inches. So I'll go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2, which is 7 plus ½ inch, giving me 7.5 inches. So I came down by 1 inch to mark my shoulder slope, and after that I'm going to be finding my chest line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So I'll just measure what I have here just to have a straight line, and I'll mark. After that, I'm just going to go ahead to place my ruler, connect, and after connecting, I'll place my ruler this way again, and I'm going to go ahead to draw out my line. So this will be serving as my chest line at this part. So the next thing I will do is to divide my armhole into 2, and I'll mark. Go in by ½ inch, and I'm going to place my my tape, and I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 at this point, which will be serving as a guide for me. So I'll connect from the middle of the armhole down to the chest line, and I'll connect it back to the shoulder. So after doing this, I'm done drafting out this part, and I'll just go ahead to use my marker to outline it so that it's going to be very visible for you to see. So the next step you want to take is to go ahead to mark your nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I'm going to go ahead to mark it at the bust line, at the underbust line, and at the waistline. So you can equally go ahead to mark it at the chest line, but I'm just going to leave it at the bust line so that it will be easier for me to draw my curve, because this is a princess dart bustier. So now I'll be taking my dart intake of 1 inch at both sides. So you can go ahead and mark ½ inch in front and then mark 1.5 inches at the other side if you also want. But I'll be using 1 inch at both sides, and after marking that, I'll go ahead and place my ruler, and I'm going to connect to draw a straight line. So after that, I'm just going to go ahead to use my marker, and I'm going to draw it out to make it more visible. So once I'm done, I'm going to be drawing my cup at the upper part. Place my French cuff touching my bust down to my under bust, and I'll repeat the same process at the other side. So if you don't have a French cuff, you can just go ahead and make use of your freehand sketch. Now I'm going to divide my armhole into 2, mark, and I'm going to connect from this point down to my armhole. And after I'm done connecting that, I'll just go ahead and use my marker to outline. Now I'll be going up by 1 inch at this point and 1 inch at the lower part. Go ahead and I will connect it back to that first line that is going towards my armhole, and also connect the other line. So after I'm done, I'm just going to go ahead to connect it back to my main line this way. So this is what I have at this point. So now this 1 inch that we took, I'm going to replace it or extend it outwards this way, and I'm going to connect it down to this other part. So the reason why I'm doing this is that most times you join your princess dart bustier, one side might be shorter, especially this side that has the armhole. So with this, is not going to be too smaller than the other part. You won't have issues when you're joining it. So next, I'm going to be marking my body circumference. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. So that 2 inches, that also I will replace it and mark my sewing allowance. At the underbust, I'll mark my underbust circumference, measure the dart intake, and mark my sewing allowance. At the waistline, I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, and I will replace add my sewing allowance. So I'll go ahead to connect all the marks together this way, and after I'm done doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to use my marker to outline it so that it's going to be very visible. So this is what I have, and now we are going to alter this pattern to get the neckline. So looking at the thumbnail, I'm just going to follow what we have there, and as you're going down, what we have at this part is getting slimmer or smaller. So this is what I have, and I'm just going to go ahead to outline it, and this is how it is looking like. So for the upper part, which is the collar part, I'll be cutting that out when we're actually sewing the dress. So this is my pattern, and the next thing is to go ahead to cut it out. So that center part is going to be the mesh. So at this point, if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for supporting my channel. So now, while cutting at the neckline where the yoke stops, you're going to go ahead to notch it. Moving over to the back pattern, so I have marked out all the basic measurements just like I did in front. The only difference is that I have a zipper allowance and my neckline is 3 by 2 inches. Now I'm going to go ahead to mark my dart, which is my shoulder to bust line plus 1 inch, and I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I'm going to go ahead to draw a straight line. So when I was actually videoing that, my phone stopped recording and I wasn't aware. So all you have to do is just to draw that line meeting up to the upper part, and you're going to mark 1/2 inch at both sides and connect your dart. So for someone that wants to create a princess dart, you're just going to connect from the middle of your pattern, sorry, your armhole, to your dart line. That is if you want to have a princess bustier at the back, like the princess dart at the back. But for my back, I just want to use a basic back pattern for this dress actually. So now I'm going to start marking all my body circumference, and whatever measurement you have is going to start after the zipper line. So I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, which gives me 8.3, and I will mark my sewing allowance. At the under bust, I'm going to mark the under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake I have here, and I'm just going to replace it. And after measuring that, I'm going to go ahead to mark my sewing allowance. And after I'm done marking my sewing allowance, we're moving over to the waistline. So at the waistline, I'll be marking my waist circumference divided by 4. Measure this dart intake. Whatever dart you're going to take out on this pattern, it is very important for you to place it back. And I'm going to mark my sewing allowance. After that, I'm just going to go ahead, connect from my waist to my under bust and down to my bust line and chest line. So this is what I have after I'm done drafting, and I'm going to go ahead to outline my pattern so that it will be very easy for you to see. So after outlining my pattern, the next thing you want to do is, in case you want to give this a princess dart curve at the back, go ahead and connect this way. So after that, the next thing is to get rid of bulginess at the end of your dress. So I'm going to mark 1/2 inch from this part, and I'm going to place my ruler and connect it to the upper part. So this is to get rid of that bulginess at the back of a dress, and I'm just going to connect. And after this, my back pattern is ready, and I'm going to go ahead to cut out my pattern. So if you have any question regarding this tutorial that you don't understand, please leave your question at the comment section. So moving over to the skirt pattern, this is what I have. And remember, our pattern stopped at our shoulder to waistline. My shoulder to waistline is 17 inches. So my dress stops at, my total length is 37. Placing my tape at that 17 inches, which is my waistline, I'll mark 37. Now you're going to add 2 inches for folding allowance. This is to create a turn up effect at the lower part of your dress, and I'm just going to go ahead to mark it this way. So after I'm done doing that, the next step is to go ahead and place my tape. So what I folded my skirt with is my hip circumference, which is 40 divided by 4. I have 10 inches, and you're going to add your sewing allowance to it. So I'll place my tape and I'm going to mark 7 inches to get my hip line. So after that, I'll take my tape up and I'm going to be marking my waist circumference divided by 4, and I'm going to be adding my sewing allowance. Now if you use that on your skirt when you're sewing your bustier or corset, go ahead and add your dart intake. If not, you can just go ahead to leave it this way. So at the hip line, I'm going to mark my hip circumference divided by 4, and I'm going to be adding my sewing allowance to it. So whatever I have at my hip is 40 divided by 4, which gives me 10 plus 1.5, that is 11.5. So I'll be minusing 2 or 1.5 inches depending on how fitted you want your skirt to be. So whatever I have, I'm just going to go ahead to mark it at this point, and from there I'll be connecting it back to the hip line of my skirt, and I'll connect from the waist down to the hip also. So after I'm done drawing out, the next step I'm going to take is to go ahead and I'm going to trace out my skirt pattern. I'll cut it out. After cutting it out, I'm going to place it on another fabric, and in front I'll be adding my zipper allowance. So now I'm just going to go ahead and trace out what I have at the back, and I'm going to slit the front into 2. So with that, we are done drafting. So I'll be cutting out the sleeve of the dress and the collar while we are sewing or stitching this dress. So don't forget to join us in our next video where we'll be actually sewing this dress pattern. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button. And for my returning subscriber, thank you for always supporting my channel. Thanks.